phrase, often enough, not getting around the patch, not talking to people enough, and we felt that this was one way, but we could try to reach out a little more. So this is, I think, probably the 6th of these that we've done. We've been over to Corringham, we've been down in Tilbury, we've been over to Ockenden, we've been into Little Thurrock, and now to Chafford. What we want to do this evening is for Graham Farron, the Council's Chief Executive, to just give us 15 or 20 minutes on the regeneration plans for the borough, and then have some questions focused on that. Then after that,
So what are the areas of growth, what are the areas of change? If I just take a quick journey from west to east, and then I'll show you some of the sites and tell you a bit more about each one. In the furthest west, Thurrock, where we're looking to build about 3,000 new homes in a new town centre, remodelling Thurrock as you know it. At the moment in Botany Quarry, there's a lot of low-grade industrial uses, lots of vacant land, lots of ex-manufacturing industry that's moved away. Actually, the potential there is to build a new town centre for Thurrock, focused around the railway station, so good commuting into London, but also good quality housing down to the river. So a real opportunity there. 3,000 homes, they're not dissimilar from the size of Chafford as a whole development.
I haven't seen them, so I don't quite know how the extension is going to be managed. I mean, that's my thing. Could you explain how the 50% increase in shop space is going to be?
There's a range of mechanisms, but at the moment the first application they've put in is to take the north end car park, to create a multi-storey car park, keep the same car parking facility, and then to build out on the space that they've created. Many of you would have heard that when Lakeside was built there was promise of leisure uses as well, and the most common message I get is the leisure's never arrived. We've been talking to them about, okay, where's the promise of leisure, where's that going to be? And in the bit between the shops and the lake, there's room for a leisure core as well in there. And the reassurance I've had is they're going to come and talk to us in the new year with their advanced plans to bring forward the leisure as a phase very, very quickly following on from the existing phase. But that's all about the Lakeside Shopping Centre. There's also a whole redevelopment scheme for the basin as a whole, the wider environment, to include some of what looks like out-of-town retail and try and build that all into a more cohesive package.
The next phase of the process, the first point being really to agree the idea in principle. We've got that far now, and we know we've got that decision out of the way. The next decision really is then to actually look at the detail of the master plan. And if you think about what a town centre consists of, there'll be shopping in there, there'll be leisure in there, there'll be offices in there, there'll be other forms of employment, maybe a bit of residential, there'll be sort of access to public services, libraries and that sort of thing. And so the idea really is that over the next 10 to 15 years we're going to come across with a series of phased developments that add all these bits and pieces. So instead of just being shopping alone, it's all those other things. So at the end of that period, you actually then can take the view that you've got a regional town centre. So you've got something that looks like Basildon Town Centre or Stratford City or Southend or Chelmsford. And the idea is to create something that feels and looks and is the same as a regional town centre.
Massive amounts of data about the health and well-being of our population, and part of what we've got to do is work with communities, work with partners, particularly working with partners in health, but also in the private sector, to make sure that the health and well-being of the community is enhanced by the regeneration development. So one of the things that we're certainly very mindful of here is respiratory disorders and the impact on air quality. And any of you parents, I know, will be thoughtful about levels of asthma in children, and I'm sure Linda could tell us about what it's like in schools. That's as much on our agenda as the infrastructure, the building. It is about people as well as...
in terms of really raising aspirations of kids, I think it's absolutely crucial. I think it's absolutely a core part of what we're talking about in terms of regenerating Thurrock. And one of the things that Graham highlighted there was the South Essex College campus right in the centre of Grays, and that's offering those kind of vocational opportunities that you talked about, and that kind of real centre stage for kids to be able to see that level of success right in the middle of Grays, see it as a kind of natural progression from schools. And I think that should be really something that helps to raise aspirations and move people on. In terms of pressure in place, I think you're absolutely right again. Part of our plan and the elements of regeneration that we're discussing perfectly include an additional primary school. We're very aware as well that there's a huge amount of pressure on places across the west of the borough, especially in primaries, for pupils. And that applies very much here on Chafford as it does in large part of the west of the borough. So there's, as we say, potential provision for a new primary school in Purfleet. We're also looking at pupil place planning more generally to make sure that we do have adequate provision and an adequate number, especially at the primary level of schools and school places across the west of the borough.
But nothing specific at the moment, you're looking at it.
Sure, so in terms of specific plans, Purfleet Primary School is very much part of those plans, and it's very much something that's on the agenda. Joe, correct from, but I think we're looking at, is it 3 for elementary for Purfleet Primary? So that's a large number of potential extra school places for kids. Beyond that, we're continually reviewing. I think one of the issues we've got is that I don't think our models in terms of pupil places has been effective.
Giving them work experience with some projects, helping them to see some of the industries, because a lot of people look at our industry from the outside and don't feel like they want to go in it. So the power station, for example. Actually, when they go to the power station, they realise the job opportunities that are available. So we're trying to soften some of those barriers as well by helping people in. You don't just get paid a lot of money if you go to London. Actually, there's some quite highly paid jobs. And some of those, are not high-skilled jobs as well in the area. So we're trying to make sure that's in place. We're also going to be working with those big employers, and we're just working out the best way of doing that now with the schools, with the colleges, with the council, to say how do we make sure that we've got the right people with the right skills mix for the jobs you're going to create next year and the year after.
Well, it's got jobs in terms of...
Children's Services, for Thurrock, Borough Children's Services.
Yep. Yes.
So I was just wondering how they're going to be, I work quite closely with them, and I was just wondering how they're going to be coping with the, obviously the increase of people coming into the area, the schools and all of that. Are they working quite closely with you to ensure that they can cope with the extra strain and the referrals that come through and whatever else?
Sure. Do you mean more from a children's safeguarding?
Children's safeguarding and perhaps even on word safeguarding as well.
Shall I say something and then maybe Councillor Rice will join in? I'm the Borough's Director of Children's Services. I'm responsible for people's services, part of which obviously is children's because they are people.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted that you've raised the question about safeguarding of children, because actually sometimes we forget that there are children who live in difficult, vulnerable circumstances right across our community. It's not that we have them in some places and not with others. And I'm very pleased to say that in Thurrock we've taken, I think, a very intelligent approach to budget management. We're in a difficult position. Everywhere we're having to look at how do we make savings. Councillor Rice, who's the portfolio for children's safeguarding, and the rest of the cabinet require me to put in front of members the risks and the opportunities in a very open and honest way, so they get data on how many referrals we have, how much pressure there is on the service, how many children in care, how many children subject to protection plans. So before they make any decisions, they're looking at caseloads, they're looking at data, they're looking at the right information, because obviously as their professional lead for children's safeguarding, it's my responsibility to make sure that they have all the information they need to make good decisions. And I'm very pleased to be able to tell people here that in Thurrock, our politicians want to know as it is. So they don't want me to pull the wool over their eyes or pretend things are better than they are, or to try and, make savings that can't be made. They want to know it as it is, so that they can make good decisions. Everywhere in the country, services are under pressure. And